Welcome into the PFF College Football Show. Max Chadwick alongside Dalton.
Okay, Max, you're having apparently some mic issues, so I'm good. Welcome to the PFF College Football Show. Dalton Wasserman alongside Max Chadwick there. Just we get the same intro going. I don't know what's up with Max's mic, but either way, you know what? I think it's good that I get to intro this one because you know what I get to do? For all the fun stuff that we do on this show, game previews, game reviews, everything, the number one favorite thing that I love doing when we get on camera here is criticize you. That's got to be the best part, and that's exactly what we're doing today. Max wrote a post-Super Bowl mock draft that is up on PFF.com right now, and we're going to pick it apart, every single pick, just to find every last thing that I think you did wrong.
Hopefully the mic is working.
Still cooked. Wow. This is gonna. You're just gonna watch me have a monologue about your mock draft. Maybe this is even the best way to do the show, right? I mean, just 1 through 32, figure out, everything you did wrong, and you just get to sit here quiet and just figure out, for next time, post combine, post free agency, figure out all the team needs. I would ask you how you're doing, but no one can hear you anyway. So, what's the difference, man? Oh man, wonder what's going on. You could tell me what's going on in the chat. I could pull the chat up.
They love you as a host.
Oh, I'm sure they do. Listen. Honestly, we were planning on at some point just switching it up just for the fun of it, but we're figuring it out. We're figuring it out here. Wow, this is fun. It's a good time. No, you can't. You can't defend anything. You've been silenced. Finally.
Do you want to tell the people about PFF Plus?
I have finally hijacked your show. You can also make your own mock drafts for one team or 32 or anywhere in between with a PFF Plus subscription. That is 25% off with the code PFFCFB25. However many of you think you can make a better mock draft than Max Chadwick, I am sure you can do it. I believe in your abilities. PFFCFB25. Max, are we back on?
I hope so. Are we good now, Eli, we think? We're good? Okay.
We're good.
Appreciate it. Look at the producers, Eli and Tyler, right there. That was quick.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah.
If I knew my mic was off, then we would have just been done for the show. Like, all right, no show.
Oh, no, I would have just sat here and continued to pick it apart. Absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, wow, look at that. Look at you. Get a curveball on a Tuesday show.
Doing the intro, doing the PFF Plus ad read. I actually kind of love it. Maybe we'll switch it up maybe sometime.
Yeah, maybe here and there. I've had this idea that the next Halloween, what we should do if we have a show around Halloween is I should be you and you should be me.
All right.
What do you think?
Do enough.
That'll work. We'll do
That's
that.
Good enough.
Okay, I'll make sure to get all my game picks wrong.
Donnie's saying turn the mic back off. He needs to earn the privilege to talk. Yeah, basically.
I agree. I tell the guys here, I tell the producers that all the time, but they're just like, well, he's the host.
It would have been funny if you could just read through my mock draft and kill it while I just can't talk.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't defend myself.
Yeah, no. I would find a way to disagree with every single pick.
By the way, this mock draft I just did is available at PFF.com right now, the latest mock draft on PFF. As post-Super Bowl, like Dalton said, post-Super Bowl mock drafts will be the full order for all 32 NFL teams now for the 2026 NFL Draft. Matt Dalton mentioned before the mock draft simulator. I use that to make this mock draft. You could use it as well at PFF.com. All right, Dalton, let's dive into this mock draft right now. Starting off, of course, at number 1 overall. You can see a little bit of the spoilers at the top of the headline right there. But at number 1, Mendoza. Go to the Raiders. Anything there?
Nope. I'll let you slide with that one. You got one right. You're off to a good start.
All right. Number 2, and by the way, this is a predictive mock draft, which is what I think is going to happen in April right now. Not necessarily what I would do personally if I was the GM. At number 2, I think right now Arvell Reese, the linebacker / edge rusher from Ohio State, is probably the favorite to go number 2 to the Jets.
Sure sounds like whether he plays linebacker or he moves to edge defender full time, a la an Abdul Carter, that it seems like he is possibly seen as the most talented player in this draft, right? There is pass rush ability. He's a freak of an athlete. He's got length. He got better in run defense as a linebacker this past year at Ohio State playing next to Sonny Styles. So I think really the question for me is the debate. I would think if he's going second overall, you're going to take him most likely primarily as an edge rusher, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when's the last time we saw a linebacker go that high, right? It's been possibly decades since a true linebacker went second overall. So I think that's the thing that the Jets are going to have to ask themselves with Reese. Do we feel like he's a good enough edge rusher and he's so special that we can take him over a Reuben Bain or a David Bailey. Or if you draft him number 2 overall as a true linebacker off ball, you think he can be the best linebacker in football. You think he's the next Fred Warner. I don't know that we are – I don't think we're there with Arvell Reese necessarily, but that's going to be the question, and I would assume if they were to take him, he's going on the edge to play alongside Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald.
I would argue that you can Arvell Reese isn't even the best linebacker on his own team in this draft. I think Sonny Styles is a better pure linebacker than Arvell Reese, but his ability to be as a pass rusher, as a kind of an edge rusher, kind of like the Jalen Walker type role that we saw the Falcons take. Micah Parsons, of course, out of Penn State, kind of the similar to Joe Carter, made that transition in Penn State too. But Arvell Reese, I'm sure people are hoping can make that type of jump from being a linebacker to a full-time edge rusher and be a superstar in that role as well. So Arvell Reese goes number 2 overall. Got our guys, a lot of our guys in the chat right now. Dalton, you got Pick and Spreads, Donnie, got Walt in the chat right now. Andrew Harbaugh back in the chat too. Love Harbs being in the chat.
I think they all tuned in once your mic was cut. That's
exactly. Yeah, it was probably a record number of viewers, honestly, once my mic was off. At number 3, Donnie said that he wants his Arizona Cardinals to trade down and take a tackle. There were no trades in my mock draft, but at number 3, I do have them taking a tackle in Francis Mauigoa out of Miami.
I actually think trading down would be a really good move for them. And Trevor and I, we have a mock draft on the NFL show that's coming out later this week. We pre-recorded it this morning, and we did it with trades. And one of the things in this draft, without that many blue chip players, is going to be, okay, if you're trying to trade down, because I think even the Jets at 2 in a relatively normal year might want to trade down and get more assets, although they have plenty already. But
who's going to trade up?
Right.
You need a dance partner.
Who's going to trade up? Who's going to get desperate for certain player, right? Even if it's a Caleb Downs or a Reuben Bain, are you really going to pay that much of a price or for a player like that? Or are you just going to wait, especially on the defensive side of the ball, when there's so much more defensive depth in this class where you can get a pretty good alternative even if you're sitting at, say, number 10 with Cincinnati or number 12 with Dallas, right? Do you really need to trade up to number 3 to beat, Tennessee, maybe to Reuben Bain Jr.? I don't know that you're going to pay that price necessarily. So the Cardinals are in a tough spot. Maybe they can trade down a couple of spots and get more assets. I do think that would be a good idea. If not, I do like your pick of Francis Mauigoa here. I believe it's the same pick we made this morning, actually. Plug and play. Right tackle's been a huge problem. The right side of the offensive line's been a huge problem for Arizona. Mauigoa fits right in seamlessly. Him and Paris Johnson is a good way to start your offensive line.
Yeah, Jonah Williams, I believe, is a free agent this offseason. If not, he had a really bad year this past year. It's Arizona's right tackle, so even if he is back with Arizona, I would still take a guy like Francis Mauigoa or maybe a Spencer Fano. Like you said, seamless fit at right tackle opposite of Paris Johnson Jr. for whoever's the next quarterback for Arizona, whether it be Kyler Murray or someone else in that franchise. All right, number 4, Dalton, the Titans, who of course want to build around Cam Ward, but I think Reuben Bain Jr. Is too good to pass up, especially with the Tennessee edge unit right now that doesn't really have a true superstar. I think Robert Saleh, a defensive-minded head coach, is going to want to look to build up that defensive line a little bit more.
I think you could argue receiver here. You could argue a trade down here as well if somebody were willing to come up here. But then you look at this Tennessee defense, and you know Robert Saleh, as always, he's going to take so much pride in this defense, and he's going to be calling the defensive plays this time around, something he didn't do in New York with the Jets. To me, this comes down to Bain or Bailey. I'm with you on that. And it's really just going to come down to figuring out what is the preference of Robert Saleh between those two players. Because Bain, a little more stout, really good in run defense, maybe not quite his first step as explosive on his first step as David Bailey is, or is Robert Saleh going to want David Bailey, who's got the wicked first step, who would fit in that 4-man front as that wide 9 edge rusher that he loves so much? You even remember a couple of years ago, the Jets taking Will McDonald in the first round because that was the idea. He loves those wide 9 pass rushers. So I think if Bain and Bailey are both on the board for Tennessee, one, to me, they can't go wrong, right? I love their interior defensive line, Cedric Gray at linebacker, guys like Kevin Winston at safety. I think the middle of their defense is pretty good right now, but they got to get better off the edge and at corner. And between Bain and Bailey, I think that's going to be a fun debate for Robert Saleh if they're both there.
Yeah, I think Bain's a better run defender and similar as a pass rusher, so I would have him above Bailey right now, but it is a very, very close debate between the two of them. And David Bailey, spoiler, will go a little bit, not too far later in this mock draft. At number 5, the Giants take the second tackle to go in the top 5 in this draft. That's Spencer Fano out of Utah. Kind of like the Titans and kind of like the Cardinals. They have other needs, but the Giants, they could have gone with a wide receiver here, but also Dalton, I think they want to protect Jackson Dart because of how many injuries he had in his rookie year. You have your left tackle and Andrew Thomas when healthy, but on the right side has been a complete mess for usually for New York with Evan Neal not working out at all at right tackle, having to play guard for them. I think Spencer Fano and Andrew Thomas would be a really, really good tackle duo for Jackson Dart and John Harbaugh in that system.
I think this is going to be, the Giants are going to be a fun team to watch through free agency as well to really narrow down their needs, because I think you could make an argument for a right tackle. Jermaine Illuminor is a free agent. You can make an argument for a receiver. They need a number 2 receiver. If Wan'Dale Robinson's going to leave in free agency, they could get better at corner. I think Caleb Downs could be an option for them to pair with Javon Holland and safety, and that type of impact safety. Look where John Harbaugh just came from in Baltimore. Kyle Hamilton is the key to his whole defense. Downs isn't built like Hamilton, but his instincts are just as good, and he can play anywhere on the field. I think there's a Sonny Styles argument. I think basically everything other than defensive line, you could convince me, hey, you know what? The Giants could find a really talented player that could help their football team, but I do like the idea of protecting Jackson Dart, getting the run game going, especially when Cam Scatterbo gets healthy, adding balance to this offense. But you get a lot of teams here that are going to be looking at offensive line and receiver and debating the depth of this class as well as far as what to attack later. But I do like the idea. Andrew Thomas, an elite left tackle. Spencer Fano plugs right in there at right tackle. He should be a good player in the NFL. I think that is a good way to go about it to protect your young quarterback.
Yep, definitely. I do think that, these tackles in this draft with Mauigoa, Fano, even Caden Proctor, who I'm actually a big fan of as well, I think they're going to go a lot higher than people think. That's why 2 tackles in the top 5 of this mock. I would not be surprised if we see tackles go a lot higher, I think, in this draft than most people expect. At number 6, the Cleveland Browns' first receiver off the board is a guy that's in the state of Ohio, Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. I think right now, I don't think he's going to be my wide receiver 1, Dalton, when we do our rankings on Friday, but he is probably right now, I would say for most people, wide receiver 1. So in a predictive mock draft for a Browns team that had the 2nd worst receiving grade in the league this past year, I think Carnell Tate would fit a big need there.
I think the top 3 receivers, Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, and Jordan Tyson. In some order, it's just a matter of what you like. I think the talents are very, very equal. If you want the short range and after the catch and toughness, you take Mekhi Lemon. If you want, I think, the best intermediate route runner in the class, I think you get Jordan Tyson. And if you want the most explosive vertical threat of the 3, I've seen some loose George Pickens comps with Carnell Tate. If you want somebody who can win down the field, double moves, body control, contested catches, you take Tate. So I think either way, the Browns' mission here to me in this first round has to be get a wide receiver, get an offensive lineman, and probably attack those 2 positions multiple times throughout the draft. But I will have no issue either way if they go receiver or tackle, depending on the availability, because you already have Mauigoa and Fano gone. So the next one probably is Caden Proctor. There's obviously some other good candidates, but I think enough candidates that you could wait till number 24 with an offensive lineman. I forget if you did it here. I skimmed through this morning, and then I did another mock with Trev. So I didn't memorize everything you did here, but wide receiver is a good way to go, especially if it falls like this for the Browns.
I do love the strategy because the Browns had one of the worst offensive lines and one of the worst receiving courses in the league this year. I do think the strategy of wide receiver and tackle in some order in the first round would be the right way to go. But like you said, because Fano and Mauigoa are both off the board by number 6, that's why I take wide receiver here. I don't think they would take Caden Proctor at number 6 overall. So spoiler, they will be taking a tackle later on at number 24. Don't think the value is worth there at number 6. I do think the value is there, though, for a receiver to go number 6. So that's why I took Carnell Tate there, who led the all FBS receivers this year in passer rating when targeted at 151.8. At number 7 is Washington, and they take David Bailey, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. They have had one of the 6 lowest graded defenses you can see right there in 3 straight years. You get the highest graded defensive player in college football this past year in David Bailey, who has been a terrific pass rusher. In fact, he led the nation in pass rushing grade in 2 straight seasons at Texas Tech and at Stanford in 2024, and he improved a lot as a run defender this year too. So got an argument to be edge 1 in the draft and maybe a top 5 pick. I think here at number 7, Washington will like to have him on the defensive line.
They do need stars on defense. I think Washington is going to be the first team that we seriously consider as a trade down candidate, even if they take take, maybe not the maximum price that they can get for this pick, depending on how far down they're moving. I believe they're only armed with 5 draft picks because they've made, they made the trades last year for Deebo Samuel, for Laramie Tunsil. They don't have a ton of picks, and they do have a lot of problems on their defense. Now, taking a star like Bailey or Caleb Downs, don't have an issue with that because they need stars. They don't really have a single superstar on their defense. It's part of the reason they're not very good. So if they can improve, I should say, off the edge and at corner especially, then fine. I think Caleb Downs would make sense here too. But they're going to be, come draft night, a team that we really look at trying to trade down. I think when you look at how many needs they have, how many more picks they could use to improve that defense, and we're going to find out a lot about them in free agency too and how they really attack all of the problems they have, because they cannot win that division. They cannot win a championship with the defense they have as constructed.
Yeah, Harb's in the chat asking, did you think about Caleb Downs for Washington? I did. One of the reasons I didn't pick him, I will say right now, I've done previous mock drafts for PFF, and I had Caleb Downs going to Washington a lot, so I try to switch it up a little bit in this mock draft. And also, I think in a predictive mock draft, I don't know how high his safety will actually go in a draft, even one as good as Caleb Downs. I personally would have no problem taking him somewhere in the top 5. Don't know if the NFL will actually do that. I do think a pass rusher like David Bailey might have a better chance, as of right now, to go a little bit higher than Caleb Downs. But by the way, Caleb Downs is not lasting too much longer in this mock draft either. At number 8, Dalton, New Orleans Saints. They take a weapon for Tyler Shuck in that offense, and Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. I know you, a lot of the times, like to have Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame, go there. I think the Saints also need to improve that receiving core, get more around Chris Olave there. You should be really excited about what happened with Tyler Shuck this past year. He really was a top 20-ish quarterback in the NFL as a rookie. I think Jordan Tyson here at number 8 overall would be a pretty smart pick for that offense.
I think so too. I mean, look, you know me, I'm a big fan of, everyone's a big fan of Jeremiah Love, and I'm a big fan of the potential fit in New Orleans with a young, improving offensive line, but they also need a number 2 receiver, right? They traded Rashid Shaheed during the season. They really don't have a whole lot of depth. Devon Vele is more of, a third or a fourth option there. When you talk about getting a number 2 guy that can take some of the pressure off of Chris Olave to have to carry them, Shuck has some really good chemistry already with Olave, but you add, like I said, I would argue the best intermediate route runner in the draft in Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. As long as he's healthy, he can absolutely be a 1A and 1B with Olave. And then if you want to attack running back later, which I do think in this scenario they would, I think in the 3rd and 4th round, New Orleans would add more running back depth. You've got Devin Neal, obviously. You've got Alvin Kamara with 1 more year on his contract. But you do have to start prepping for the future at that position. I understand that, but I think Jordan Tyson is a solid pick here too. Any way you can help out Tyler Shuck and just aid his development, I think is a good move.
Yeah, and I also don't love taking a running back to a team that I still think is a little bit of a ways away from truly competing. I think I got, like, for the next team example, Jeremiah Love going to the Chiefs. That makes a lot of sense considering this is always a perennial Super Bowl contender other than this year. For a team like the Saints, I think it's probably smarter to take a guy like Jordan Tyson for that offense and try to help your young quarterback and Tyler Shuck develop a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there's definitely different ways. That'll be the fun part this year with the full year of Tyler Shuck. Is I'll be honest with you, with the way they improved down the stretch, you're going to see some pundits pick the Saints to win that division. Yeah. Because their defense got a lot better under Brandon Staley. They've got some good young players on defense. They just have to figure out one way or the other, whether it is a back like Love or a receiver like Tyson or Tate or Lemon, how to get more consistently explosive on offense.
Yep. Speaking of Jeremiah Love, at number 9 here to the Kansas City Chiefs, Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, both unrestricted free agents this offseason. I don't know if either of them are going to be back in Kansas City, so Kansas City will have a need at running back, and lucky enough for them, they have a guy who's well worth a top 10 pick here in Jeremiah Love, who I would argue is probably a top 3-ish player overall in this draft, just in terms of how good he is at his position. I think the gap between Jeremiah Love and the next running back in this draft is bigger than the gap at any other position in this draft too. So Jeremiah Love is a superstar, one of the best running back prospects in recent memory. We actually just had a scouting report on Jeremiah Love drop on this channel if you guys want to go check it out. But I think Jeremiah Love is well worth a top 10 pick, and he'd be a lot of fun to watch with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in that Chiefs offense.
For a team whose running backs were maybe the least explosive unit in the league this last year, Jeremiah Love adds every bit of that explosiveness. And I think the fun part about this is there's going to be a ton of speculation about, well, in free agency, can the Chiefs get into the running back market? Could they go after Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall, somebody like that who would add that element? They have right now, I believe Trevor told me they're negative 50 or 60 million somewhere up in cap space. They're way above the cap right now. They got to do some restructures and maybe some cuts to get just cap compliant. And even then, do they want to go out and spend, say, even $12 million a year on a Breece Hall, right, who is a good player and an explosive player? Or would you rather fix some other needs on your team, address the offensive line in free agency, and then go take an explosive playmaker in the backfield like Love? I think we're going to know a lot more about Kansas City and this pick after free agency, and if and how much they attack this position in free agency.
Donnie says, unpopular take here, Chiefs roster isn't good enough to take a running back at number 9.
You could make the argument. Look, I think
they do have holes.
There's some
sure.
underrated needs for this team. Something I mentioned to Trevor earlier was, look, Brian Cook, top 5 graded safety in football this year, unrestricted free agent, right? They're not that well built right now. There's not a ton of depth on their defensive line. That's a need. I think if Mauanoa or Fano were on the board here, I think Jawan Taylor is getting cut. They're going to need a new right tackle. There are a lot of options for the Chiefs here. There's a lot of people just shooing in, well, if Jeremiah Love gets to 9, they're going to take him. Well, you do need a good offensive line in front of them, right? And they've got a couple of guys that we like. Josh Simmons, healthy. Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. But right tackle could be a problem. Left guard could be a problem. And there's some holes on their defense that they could fix as well. Don't be shocked. And they don't usually do this with defensive backs in Kansas City other than Trent McDuffie. Don't be shocked if Caleb Downs were the pick there, if he's available too. Go and replace Brian Cook. And they love, Steve Spagnuolo loves those versatile defensive backs.
True.
Nobody better than Caleb Downs.
That would be a really fun pick for that Kansas City defense. But Caleb Downs goes to number 10 to the Cincinnati Bengals, who have not had a true star at safety really since they let Jesse Bates walk. And also, I looked it up. Over the last 3 years without Jesse Bates, they have the lowest graded safeties as a unit in the NFL with only a 53.7 PFF grade. Caleb Downs would instantly change the trajectory of that position for that franchise. And like you said before, he is, I think, a top 5 easy player in this draft. I would take him somewhere in the top 5 of this draft. But I think at number 10, if he does last at number 10, the Bengals should sprint that card in.
Yeah, I mean, pass rusher obviously also going to be a priority. Would they go with a Sonny Styles instead of a Caleb Downs because their linebackers this year, mostly Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter, 2 rookies playing, they really struggled. I would consider a road where maybe the Bengals sign a veteran linebacker and still even look at the talent in this class considering how much those 2 guys struggled. But the approach here, I assume, once you got to 10 was, okay, this defense needs everything it can get. Let's take the best player available. Caleb Downs, the best football player available, right? And I think that makes a lot of sense for Cincinnati. So anything this offseason to improve their defense, because as we saw in the AFC, it's wide open. And if you can keep Joe Burrow healthy and you can not have one of the 3 worst defenses in football, they could make a deep run through the AFC.
Donnie's saying Downs is the only blue chip grade for me. He's a perfect nickel/box prospect. We saw how good Nicky Manwari was for the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. I think Caleb Downs is a far, far better prospect than Nicky Manwari was coming out too.
Sure. So. The one difference is going to be Downs is not as physically imposing as Manwari or Derwin James or Kyle Hamilton, right? He's got a more average size build to him, even though his instincts are absolutely off the charts. I think as a football player, you're correct, but there's also the part with Manwari where he's 6'4", he's 235 pounds, he can run like a wide receiver. Those are going to be the traits, and we'll see if Caleb Downs even bothers running or doing any of the drills at the combine, because with his tape, I don't know that I would bother. Why expose yourself to that? But that's going to be the big question with Downs, is he's not built like a Kyle Hamilton or a Nicky Manwari, so it could be a little bit different as far as his eval.
I still think he could play in the box, though. In the NFL.
Sure. No,
I still have no qualms with him.
He's a great tackler. There's no issue with him choosing to be physical or not. It's just a matter of, what is he, about 6 foot and 200, 205, something
like that, yeah.
I mean, so it's just a little bit different when you talk about, to be honest, this year, Nicky Manwari was a linebacker. Caleb Downs is not going to walk into the league and play linebacker, but and the other part to this, too, with the Bengals is how much does Al Golden trust Jordan Battle and Geno Stone back there, or do they really just want to attack the front 7? Because I think of the 3 layers, the secondary is the best one for Cincinnati right now. It's not elite, but it's the best unit of the 3. How much do they want to just attack this front 7? That's the part where I think Sonny Styles could still be the option there at 10.
Yep. Number 11, Miami Dolphins. Mansour Delane, the corner out of LSU. They did not have a good cornerback room at all in Miami this past year. The only good one they had was Rasul Douglas, and he's an unrestricted free agent right now and 30 years old. So I think Mansour Delane, who right now I would say is probably the favorite to be CB1 in this draft, had a 31.3 passer rating allowed this year, which is the best among any Power 4 corner. He was one of the best corners in college football this past season. I think he's going to go somewhere in the top 15 the draft. And for a secondary like the Dolphins that need help at corner, I think Delane will be a really smart pick.
We mentioned trade-ups and trade-downs, too, and we've got a couple of teams here right after Miami and Dallas and the Rams who have major cornerback needs. I do wonder if there was a trade-down scenario for a Kansas City or a Cincinnati, maybe it's just a couple of spots with one of those two teams, knowing how badly the Dolphins need corners. And Jeff Hafley, I think he didn't get to work with any sort of elite cornerback talent when he was in Green Bay. Could be able to take one here with Delane if he falls to him. But Dolphins have a lot of needs, right? I mean, I think you're even going to see whispers about, hey, could they look at Ty Simpson? Yep. They need a quarterback, right? It's going to be hard to walk into next year with Quinn Ewers as your starting quarterback, right? They need depth at receiver beyond Jalen Waddle. They could use a tight end. Is it a Kenyon Sadiq spot? They could use plenty of things on their defense that didn't play well for most of this year. So I think the Dolphins really are in a best player available sort of mindset, coinciding with all of the needs that they have on their team.
Yep. Number 12, the Dallas Cowboys. They take Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State. Actually, Walt in the chat was saying Sonny Styles was the best defensive player on Ohio State this year. I actually might agree with that, how good he was for the Buckeyes this season. And for a Dallas team that had the second lowest graded unit of linebackers in the NFL, getting guys like Sonny Styles, who had the third best PFF grade of any linebacker in the Power 4, led all linebackers in the country in tackling grade, only missed 2% of his tackles all year. Sonny Styles is worth a top 15 pick, and the Cowboys need help at linebacker.
Agree. I really think there's a high chance that at number 12 or number 20, one of those two picks is going to be a linebacker. If that's Sonny Styles at 12, cool. If they go defensive back here at 12 and then take, say, a C.J. Allen at 20, I think that makes a ton of sense. But this back seven has to be the entire project for Dallas. Their offense is good enough to compete with anybody. Quinnen Williams and a full year of that on your defensive line, another year of development for Donovan Ezeraku, that's going to make a lot of sense too up front. They're going to be fine up front. This back seven has to be completely reworked, and I think the only guy that might be sort of safe is DeMarvion Overshone, who would be the linebacker next to Sonny Styles here. Styles is a great pick, and I assume, I forgot, I haven't looked at it yet. I forgot what I saw this morning, but I assume you probably went somewhere in the secondary at number 20.
I did not, actually.
Oh.
Different defensive player, but yeah,
okay,
not a secondary. Yeah, we'll get to that later on. But, yeah, Sonny Styles, man, former safety, actually coming out of high school, played a little safety for Ohio State, and you could tell by how good he is in coverage, but he also hits like a linebacker too, man. It's unreal. I think, it's kind of been not a lot of great linebackers coming to the NFL in recent years. This is an outstanding linebacker class that we have in the NFL draft this year. I think Sonny Styles is, I think, the best pure off-ball linebacker in this draft. Arvell Root's probably the first linebacker taken in the draft, but I do think Sonny Styles as an off-ball linebacker is the best in this class. The Rams at number 13 overall thought about Ty Simpson, the quarterback out of Alabama, but Matthew Stafford, who just won MVP, just also announced that he's coming back to Los Angeles for 2026. I do believe Sean McVay is going to want to maximize the Super Bowl window that they have right now with Matthew Stafford, and they would do that by taking a cornerback here in Jermod McCoy, who missed all of this past year with the torn ACL. The year before, though, had about a 90 coverage grade on the year, which was 9th in the country as a true sophomore. So I think in a predictive mock draft, I do think Sean McVay, who obviously loves Matthew Stafford, they're very, very close friends, I think he's going to want to maximize that window with Stafford rather than look to the future for this franchise.
Secondary is going to be a concern. They have major needs at cornerback, plus Cam Curl is a free agent at safety. This secondary is going to be the difference in whether or not the Rams win a Super Bowl next year, right? It was the difference this year. It fell apart down the stretch, gave up 31 points to Seattle. If they had a solid secondary that got through the entire season this year, they win the Super Bowl, right? So This is going to be the main concern, I think, both in free agency and in the draft. They have actually a greater amount of cap space than I thought they did. They could be at the top of the cornerback market in free agency. Maybe a guy like Jamel Dean from Tampa Bay could end up with the Rams here. But this has to be the project this entire offseason. Obviously, you want to add depth to your offensive weaponry, even your offensive line. But at the end of the day, the secondary is the reason the Rams did not make and maybe win a Super Bowl. They need to improve it. As long as they feel good about McCoy's medicals, I like that pick.
You would take McCoy over Ty Simpson then for them at 13?
Yeah, the Simpson situation is odd because I do think the Rams would be the best situation for him. If he fell to 29, I really would highly consider taking Simpson then. I think when you look at the ability to at least for 1 year, if not longer, sit behind Stafford, because I think Ty Simpson would be best fit in a situation where he could sit for a year or two, as opposed to where you have him there, where I assume he would be the week 1 starter. They could think about it. If they really believe, okay, we want to sustain this thing and there's plenty of corners we could get at 29, think about a Brandon Cisse or a Keith Abney that they could feel good about, then fine. And again, I think with Jermod McCoy specifically, it's all about the injuries. And we saw last year, Will Johnson, Ben Morrison, had some guys, even Maxwell Hairston, there was some questions. Guys with medical questions at corner, they were dropping down. Will Johnson and Ben Morrison going into the second round. You do wonder if that's something that could affect McCoy going this high, possibly.
Yeah, that's fair. Number 14, the Baltimore Ravens. They have a lot of defensive needs, but I went with Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC, who I love. Honestly, we'll get to our receiver rankings on Friday. You got Zay Flowers. Yeah, you have DeAndre Hopkins, who actually had a pretty decent year this year for the Ravens too, but he is 33 years old. He is a free agent as well. You need more help around Lamar Jackson there in Baltimore. So I went with Mekhi Lemon, the USC wide receiver this year, who was the highest graded receiver in the country, won the Blitnikoff Award. I think he would be a terrific fit in that Ravens offense alongside Zay Flowers.
Oh, they need help at receiver.
Yeah.
They do. Zay Flowers really carried a heavy load for him this year. You look at their tight end room. Mark Andrews kind of slowly declining a bit, and then you've got Isaiah Likely as a free agent. Didn't have a great year with some injuries himself. They need more weapons for Lamar, no question about it. I think Mekhi Lemon would fit right in. He's got something, there's parts of his game that are a little bit similar to Flowers, but I think when you just look at how dynamic a route runner he is, how tough he is in contested situations, he can force missed tackles in the open field. Mekhi Lemon really is a complete player, and the official measurements are going to be interesting with him because he's listed at about 5'11 and 200. If he comes in smaller than that, then we might have an issue of, okay, how high are teams going to draft a guy his size? But he's an excellent football player. You could argue he's the best pure receiver in this draft. If he was 6'2 and maybe 210, 215, I think everybody would have him wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Spoiler, I might have him wide receiver 1 on Friday. We'll see when we get to that episode on Friday.
If your mic's on.
Yeah, if my mic's on. Yeah, of course. Number 15 overall, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take Keldrick Falk, the edge rusher out of Auburn. So the Buccaneers were actually 7th in pass rush grade this year, only 23rd in run defense grade. And Keldrick Falk, there is work to be done as a pass rusher, but over the last 2 years at Auburn has an 89.2 run defense grade. It's a little bit of an odd fit considering they run a 3-4 defense there. I kind of like him as a down lineman in the NFL rather than a stand-up outside linebacker. But I think he can play that kind of 4-eye, 5-tech if you want him to in that Bucs defense, or even stand up at a 2-point stance there for Tampa Bay too. So little bit of a weird fit for Keldrick Falk, I think, in Tampa Bay, but I still think he'd be a guy they're very interested in considering how bad their run defense was this year.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a nickel a good amount anyway, so when you have a player like Falk that is versatile, that can move inside and play the run if they want to get in a 5-man front, I think the question here is going to be, because you mentioned 7th in pass rush grade, yes, but it was a lot lower when they weren't blitzing. So there's an issue to me for the Bucs. When I watch their defense, there's 2 huge problems. One, linebacker, no question. If Sonny Styles is this pick, they should turn their brains off and sprint the card in, right, and go get Sonny Styles. Or then the debate is, if he's off the board like you have here going 12, is it Keldrick Falk, who has the body and the potential, and if you could even get 8 or 9 sacks out of him a year with his run defense, he'd be an impact player? Or do you just go straight up for the pressure and take, say, a Cassius Howell from Texas A&M and just go, our 4-man pass rush has to get better, and Howell could maybe give us that right now. He was the best pass rusher in the SEC this past year. So I do think the edge defender debate for Tampa is something, it's a matter of style, right? Both players would make them better, absolutely. Do they feel the need to lean in on, hey, we need a pass rusher? Or, you had a guy like David Walker who got hurt last year. You've got Elijah Roberts developing. He's a versatile piece as well. You still have Yaya Diaby as your best pass rusher. You're going to get Kalijah Kancey back, and he didn't play very much this year. Do you go and find maybe some other piece on your defense where you could use some help? Is it Kenyon Sadiq at tight end maybe with,
I'd consider that too, yeah.
Kate Otton's a free agent now too. And then you go, if we want a DPR, we'll just find one later. If it's an R. Mason Thomas or a Derek Moore or somebody like that on day 2. I think this Bucs pick, we know very specifically what their needs are. I think there is going to be a question of what order they attack them in.
Yep. I guess fair enough. I like Keldrick Falk. I do think he's going to go higher than Cassius Howe. So, again, this is a predictive mock draft. So, I've tried to get guys in the range where I think they're actually going to go in the draft. So, I think he will go above Cassius Howe, at least right now, on draft day. And I think he would fit what the Buccaneers kind of need in their edge room right now, too. So, that's why I took him into the Buccaneers. This one I know is a little controversial. I know, Dalton, you're probably not going to like this for your Jets. It's Ty Simpson from Alabama. And I'll admit right now, I don't even know if I like this pick for the Jets either. However, in a predictive mock draft, there is a lot of pressure mounting on Aaron Glenn right now, and they have no answer at quarterback. And if you just go in with that quarterback room that they got right now into next year, they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL once again. And if that happens, I don't know if Aaron Glenn gets a shot to take a quarterback in the 2027 NFL draft. So I think right now it's kind of a crappy way to look at it, but it's kind of like, okay, if you take Ty Simpson now and you still have like a bad year next year, you could at least say, hey, give me another year with this kid. This is kind of like a safety net pick, I think, for Aaron Glenn, which is never a good way to look at it for a pick. But in a predictive mock draft, I could see Aaron Glenn say, man, if we don't have a quarterback going in next year, I'm toast. I'm screwed.
Yeah, that is the problem, is the timelines of Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, and what are the expectations in 2026? Obviously not very high, but can they win 3 games again and have him survive, right? Because, I mean, if you start Justin Fields or Brady Cook or whatever they have in-house, they're only going to win 3 games again, if that, right? Ty Simpson, obviously, it's the idea, it's hope, it's the young quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a great situation for Simpson, considering what you just mentioned about the coaching staff. The whole offense is going to be running a new system under Frank Reich, right? Because, I mean, Glenn fired most of the coaching staff well after their season ended. And then for Simpson himself, I've told you, I think he would be better suited in a spot where he can sit. If he can go to the Rams, ideal. Outstanding Sean McVay. There are more whispers now that Aaron Rodgers may come back to Pittsburgh for one more year, at which point I think a Simpson pick for Pittsburgh gets more palatable, because you're planning on starting Rodgers this year, and then you have Simpson learn under Rodgers, which we know Rodgers wasn't a huge fan of in Cleveland, but he powered through it for 3 years. I mean, with Jordan Love.
Oh, Green Bay, you mean?
I say again?
Not Cleveland. It's like Green Bay.
Green Bay did. It's a long day,
Well, also, he's like 45 years old now. It's almost like, there's no future here for you. You understand where you're at.
I mean, right. And with Simpson, there's a clear-cut plan. It's like, all right, Aaron, 1 more year. We're going to draft the successor. He's not going to have as much.
He won't be as offended as Jordan Love pick was.
No, certainly not. And certainly not at 42 years old now. No. But I don't love the Jets situation for Simpson. And I don't love where the Jets are at as a team. Offensive line's pretty good. That's the one bit.
And that is one thing I thought about, too. Because the offensive line's pretty good and Ty Simpson is really good from a clean pocket, that is an area where you're like, all right, maybe he could succeed there, but they got to build the receiving corps still, too, obviously.
You're selling right now the four of the starters you have signed on the offensive line, plus Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
That's basically where you're at with that right now. Now, is that the most ideal situation? I mean, it's decent. I mean, there's worse with a couple of teams around the league, but Breece Hall's a free agent. Not sure he's coming back. We don't know. The number 2 receiver they're hoping is Adonai Mitchell. Maybe, maybe not. Talented, sure, but we got to get more consistent. So there's a lot of holes here, and then the defense was a big problem this year too. So I think it's going to be this 16th pick. I think at number 2, they're going to just take who they feel is probably the best defensive player in the draft, get a franchise cornerstone on defense. This 16th pick is one of the most interesting ones, I think, in this entire draft.
Also, Mekhi Lemon not being available here at 16 is another reason why I picked Ty Simpson. Because it's almost like, who else would I go with? It'd be like a Peter Woods or something like that for the defense, like something like that. I considered it, but I was like, man, I don't know. I just feel like the Jets might get a little bit desperate for a quarterback this in this draft cycle if they don't get an answer in free agency. So we'll see what happens in free agency. But I think right now, like I said, it's kind of a crappy way to look at it, but I do think there's a lot of pressure mounting on the Jets coaching staff and front office right now, and they got to deliver some hope for the future. And I think Ty Simpson could be that hope for the future for that franchise. Before we get to the other 16 picks in my mock draft, got to talk about the sponsor of the show, that is Western and Southern. Our game plan of the week is presented by Western and Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. Honestly, the game plan of the week, in my opinion, was Mike Macdonald in the Super Bowl, man. What a job by the Seahawks head coach, completely shutting down, really, that Patriots offense with all the exotic blitzes that he was sending at Drake May, making him kind of see ghosts out there, too. Just a great job of Mike Macdonald in winning his first Super Bowl. And just like every team win starts with a great game plan, your future should too. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect you and your family so you can focus on winning today, knowing tomorrow is covered. Whether you're just starting out, building your dynasty, or looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernsouthern.com/PFF to get your free life quote and start building your financial game plan today. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. All right, next up at number 17 overall, a guy who I think is getting a little bit underrated in this draft class right now. That is Caden Proctor, the left tackle out of Alabama. I thought he was phenomenal this past year for the Crimson Tide, and I would put him in the same grouping as Francis Mauigoa and as Spencer Fano right now in the draft. And right now, Dalton, Taylor Decker has been the left tackle for the past decade in Detroit, but he's currently mulling retirement. And even if he does come back, there's a lot of reports coming out right now that he might get cut by the Lions as well to save some money. So I do think Caden Proctor could be the next blindside protector for Jared Goff opposite of Penei Sewell.
So one of the picks that I've been making a lot for Detroit lately, if he's available, is Spencer Fano, right? Because there is still some thought, is Fano a tackle? Is he a guard? And, you know, the Lions, I think, with Decker's situation, there's a lot of fluidity with them, right? Because you could move Penei Sewell to the left side if you had to, if you felt the need to do that. If he's in there, we still have a need on the interior. The interior really kind of collapse this year. Do you move? Do you cut Graham Glasgow, the center, and move Tate Ratledge to center, and then we need a guard? Is Caden Proctor a guard, like sometimes Trevor talks about? He thinks he could be that Carl Nicks type of presence on the inside there. I think offensive line, with especially Proctor and Fano, are really going to be popular picks this season, this draft season, I should say, with Detroit, because it is that flexibility. Well, I think we're going to know a lot more about that situation once we get Decker's decision and then their decision on how much they want to pay him, if they're going to cut him, like you mentioned, and then just, okay, if we come out of free agency going, who in the world's the Lions' left tackle, or one of their tackles if they're going to move Sewell over, then I think there's a very, very real possibility like offensive line will be the most commonly mocked pick for the Detroit Lions, because that's the heart and soul of their team, right? It has been, but you saw it erode a little bit this year where they were more of a slightly above average unit with a megastar, obviously, in Sewell. I mean, remember during the season, there was thoughts of, Frank Ragnow might come back. But that's where it got with this interior. So there's going to be some shuffling on this front five for Detroit. I think Proctor is a good pick, especially if there's an assumption that Decker will not be there. Then the question is, do you just leave Sewell on the right side? And let Proctor play his natural position and let it rip?
That's what I would do.
You know, exactly. Now, if it's Fano, who is a right tackle at Utah, I'll probably flip Sewell over and pull a Tristan Wirfs and do that.
Because Sewell played left tackle in Oregon, too.
I think this is going to be a really fun situation. Them, and I'll get into the Houston Texans in a little bit, too. Those are two really fun offensive line situations to look at because of some of the fluidity and positions with Sewell and with the Texans, with Titus Howard. I'll talk about more later. But I think this is a good pick. With Fano off the board, I think with Proctor, just insurance that you have bodies, right? Because at the end of the day on the offensive line, what do you need first? You need talent. And you'll figure out that, coaches always talk about just put the best five out there. That's how they drafted Sewell. We already have Taylor, but we'll put Sewell on the right side. Fine, we'll figure it out.
Proctor had the fourth best PFF grade of any offensive tackle in the country this past season. So I really love the tape that I saw from him. And you could argue, Dalton, that he might be the best fit for Detroit, too, considering he plays left tackle, right? And there's guys like Francis Mauigoa and Spencer Fano, they play right tackle. You'd have to kind of switch over either Penei Sewell or whoever you draft there at number 17 to play left tackle for you. So I really like the fit for Caden Proctor, whether he has to play guard for a little bit while Taylor Decker finishes out his career in Detroit, or if he immediately plays left tackle for you, too, opposite of Penei Sewell. And like I said, I'm a little bit higher on Caden Proctor than I think most people are in this draft right now. Number 18, the Minnesota Vikings, Avion Terrell, the corner out of Clemson. Kind of crazy stat, Dalton. The Vikings have not had a top 15 coverage grade in 6 straight seasons. Top 15. Like, just all you got to do is be average in coverage, and you're in the top 15 basically. They have not been average really in coverage for 6 straight years. So the secondary is a major, major weakness right now for this Vikings team. And getting a guy like Avion Terrell, the corner out of Clemson, who I think will probably go somewhere around this range, I think will make a lot of sense.
The aggressive nature of Avion Terrell, right? He's even though he's undersized, a younger brother of A.J. Terrell, he's a big hitter. He loves to run defend, right? He's not afraid of anybody. It just feels like that would match up with Brian Flores right now. If Minnesota wanted to get gutsy and trade up, I wonder if they could trade up maybe and get a Mansour Delane with his man coverage ability. He would fit in there too. But if they don't do that, I think Terrell would bring a lot of attitude to this secondary, and a secondary that's going to need kind of an overhaul here, right? They've had some misses at corner. Byron Murphy obviously is going to still be around, but you also have the Harrison Smith factor at safety. Yep. Safety is going to be a position that they address this offseason with Smith potentially retiring. So the secondary definitely needs some work. You could argue maybe the interior offensive line still needs some work as well. They might be looking for, a center later in this draft on day 2, but I think Terrell makes a lot of sense. They're trying to get better on the back end. They can create plenty of pressure both with their edge rushers and Brian Flores blitzes, but they got to be able to cover one-on-one on the back end.
Yeah, Avion Terrell, obviously the younger brother of A.J. Terrell, 90.6 PFF grade over the last 2 years, is 5th among all Power 4 corners. Really good 2 years for him at Clemson. His teammate right here goes number 19 overall in Peter Woods, the D tackle out of Clemson, who, they have Derek Brown in the middle of that defensive line right now, and they drafted a lot of edge defenders last year, Nick Scorton and Princely Monmielan to help out that edge room. I think Peter Woods would be a really fun fit next to Derek Brown and form a really powerful partnership with Derek Brown in the middle of that defensive line. And, the Panthers were in the bottom 10 of both run defense grade and pass rush grade this past year. So, they have Derek Brown, and they're drafting a lot of edge rushers. They still need help, I think, on that defensive line right now. And for a guy like Peter Woods, who, my last mock draft, I had going in the top 10 of that mock draft, I think this would be a really good value for Carolina and also would fit a pretty big need for them, too.
I think Carolina better on defense, better than they were in 2024. We're not setting a high bar there at all. But I think when you look at a big list of names that could make Carolina's team better. Peter Woods, Caden McDonald would make sense to me. Any of the linebackers we've talked about, if Styles somehow got to 19 or even a C.J. Allen here would help them a lot. They need help at linebacker. Off the edge, I think a Keldrick Falk would make some sense for this team, and they like to mix up the fronts a little bit. They got a lot of options, and even I still think a sleeper could be Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon, right? He kind of fits in. They got some other inline tight ends. They could use Sadiq as another weapon. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can improve this Carolina team that did win the NFC South this year despite an 8-9 record, but Peter Woods would be a really good pick, and of course, low moving costs.
True.
Nothing wrong
Didn't even think about that. Yeah, good point right there. All right, number 20, the Dallas Cowboys. Not a secondary player. I went with Cassius Howell, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. Honestly, Donovan Ezaraku had a pretty good rookie year. But the other edge rushers that Dallas had, 4 of them are hitting free agency right now. So there's not a lot of answers right now for the Cowboys going into 2026 at edge rusher. Howell had 12 sacks this year, tied for the 5th most in the country. So it's kind of a sneaky need for Dallas right now. They have needs really everywhere on that defense, and I know a lot of people want them to take a secondary player with one of their 2 first-round picks, but I think Cassius Howell here would be a pretty good value for Dallas, and he stays in the state of Texas, low moving cost.
I think, look, Delane is off the board, McCoy is off the board, Terrell is off the board. The next corner, you might be looking at a Brandon Cisse or a Keith Abney, somebody like that.
Yeah,
right?
It'd be a little high for them. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, do you trade down and then get one of those guys? Do you just wait? I think another underrated need, I think a player who we've started to see pop up a little bit in the first-round conversation, 2 of them, I should say. Don't forget safety either. And I think when you look at Dallas and what they're going to try to do on defense, they need safeties. I believe they have the lowest graded group of safeties in the league this year. Dylan Thieneman, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, these are guys starting to get first-round buzz. I think they could fit in too. But there's so many places where you can improve this Dallas defense, arguably the worst defense in football this year. Hard to argue with that one there. Ezaraku and Howell off the edge. Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark, Digizua inside. You got a really good-looking defensive line there all of a sudden.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, replacing Micah Parsons with that Micah Parsons pick right there from the Green Bay Packers right there. Probably won't replace the production by Micah Parsons, but they did a pretty good job getting Quinnen Williams in there and getting Sonny Styles early on in the draft. Now getting Cassius Howell in later on in the draft too. Number 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers get Denzel Boston, the wide receiver out of Washington, forming a pretty massive receiver room in Pittsburgh with him and DK Metcalf right there. But even though it's a pretty massive one, it still wasn't a very good one for the Steelers this past year, the third worst receiving grade in the NFL. And I like Denzel Boston a lot, man. 87 PFF grade this past year, a receiving grade, ninth among all receivers in the country. Yeah, they kind of figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. Maybe it is Aaron Rodgers for one more year with Mike McCarthy. But regardless, this receiver room needs a lot of help outside of DK Metcalf. And honestly, Dalton, we were doing our receiver rankings for this Friday. I am really high on Denzel Boston. In fact, I know a lot of people are saying right now it's a big three of Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, and Mekhi Lemon. I would almost say it's a big four with Denzel Boston including that. I'm a lot higher on. I think there's a pretty big gap between Denzel Boston and the next closest receiver after this.
He's really good. I think there's a lot of his tape that reminds me of watching Jaden Higgins last year, who ended up as a top 40 pick. And I wonder if he could have even gone a little bit higher. If Houston had stayed at 25, would they have taken Higgins? Anyway, I think he's even a little more fluid than Higgins, maybe a little bit faster. He's obviously got the 6'4 frame. He's explosive. I think watching him one more time, a little more subtle in his releases than I thought he was, too. He knows he understands how to get himself open. Look, this is the exact type of, if he's either a high-end 2 or even a low-end 1 eventually, this is the exact type of compliment they need for DK Metcalf. They need wide receiver depth in the worst way.
Yeah. Number 22. Walt saying the Penn State guard not going this high is bad. Well, he's going for the next pick, Walt. There you go, there.
He's going. I mean, there are several other teams who could think about it. I think working all the way up to Baltimore, say at 14. But certainly, if he's here, this is pretty much the most obvious pick in the entire draft.
Yeah. Olavenga Ioane from Penn State, who the Chargers' offensive line was the worst in the NFL this past year. Yeah, they're bringing back Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt from injuries at tackle, but they still have the lowest graded interior offensive line in the NFL. I think Ioane will be a perfect fit in this offense, who did not allow a sack or a hit on over 300 pass blocking snaps this past year at Penn State.
You want a fun fact? The Chargers as a team had the worst run blocking grade in PFF history.
Wow.
That is 20 years of data. They were the worst run blocking team we have ever seen. So the bar is not particularly high if you can get Slater and Alt back healthy. And I'll tell you, the number one free agent target for me, if I'm the Chargers, especially with Mike McDaniel as their offense coordinator, throw all the money at Tyler Linderbaum.
Oh, yeah.
I would throw all the money I could at Tyler Linderbaum, and then maybe one veteran guard, and then somebody like Ioane in the first round. Watch what happens. I'm telling you, Mike McDaniel had Aaron Brewer in the Protector of the Year finalists. He was a top 6 offensive lineman in football, Protector of the Year, almost won that award. What he could do with Tyler Linderbaum in the same system, that's the guy I would go get, I'm telling you.
I wonder if Baltimore let him even walk. Probably not, but
money talks.
We'll see what happens. Also, by the way, if Ioane is not available here at 22, I would not hate Emmanuel Pregnon here at 22.
Oh, if you're the Chargers, you don't always want to just force it for the sake of need. If I'm the Chargers, I force it a little bit. The only other thing I think about, too, is if there's another edge rusher here. Because the Chargers, that's an underrated need for them, is their edge rush. Khalil Mack's a free agent. Odafe always a free agent. Defensive line would be the alternative. Maybe even if you thought you could get Pregnon somewhere in the second round, but they got to get better in the trenches. Often they cannot win with the current offensive line that they have right now.
Number 23, the Philadelphia Eagles take Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. Dallas Goedert, coming off the lowest graded year of his career, you can see right there, will be a free agent this year, too, at 31 years old. I don't know if he'll be back in Philadelphia next year. It sounds like a lot of people are saying right now that he probably won't be. So I'm going to go with Kenyon Sadiq here, man, who had the most receiving touchdowns in the country among all tight ends. So I think Sadiq will probably go somewhere in the top 20 to 25, I would say, of this draft. And for an Eagles offense, it just kind of needs a little bit more weapons at tight end especially. I think Kenyon Sadiq would probably be a pretty good fit.
Whoever drafts Sadiq, I would still like to see that team have kind of an inline complement, whether that's Goddard sticking around in Philly, if they go sign somebody, like it's been confirmed that David Njoku will not be in Cleveland anymore, maybe somebody like that. I would like to see an inline complement so Sadiq can play more of that flexible, that F role in an offense and be a big part, like him in all of Philly's RPOs. He could be a huge part of that, right, as Goddard was for so many years. I think it's just a matter of building the offense right around him so he can play in that role.
Definitely. All right, so the Browns here at number 24, their second first-round pick. So we took Carnell Tate at number 6 for them. We're going to take Caleb Lomu, the tackle out of Utah, here at number 24. The worst pass blocking grade in the year for the Browns. The fourth worst run blocking grade on the year for the Browns, too. Lomu had over an 80 pass blocking grade this year with no sacks allowed, too. So, again, I like the strategy for the Browns of taking a wide receiver receiver and a tackle, or a tackle then a wide receiver. Regardless, they have had one of the worst receiving cores and one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL this past year, and you have 2 first-round picks in a draft. I would take probably a tackle and a wide receiver with both of those first-round picks.
I think at both of those positions, those should be the first of multiple picks in this draft. They should not just take Lomu and then not take another offensive lineman. Honestly, they almost have to make up for last year when they didn't take a single offensive lineman or receiver, knowing that their receiving core was incredibly flawed and their offensive line was pretty old. They need to just completely, this entire offseason, the draft especially, because they don't have a ton of cap space, they're going to have to, this draft for me would just be all about these 2 positions, O-line, receiver. Take 2, 3, 4 players. I don't care. Figure it out. Bring talent in and let them compete for starting spots.
Donnie's saying the Browns maybe should take 2 offensive linemen with those 2 first-round picks. Maybe you do Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. How about that?
Well, there you go.
Keeping the 2 Utah tackles together. That could be fun.
Wouldn't even hate it. I mean, there's always depth at receiver too. So, I mean, they're going to need to figure out weapons on the outside too, but nothing happens if you don't block people, and the Browns right now can't block anybody.
Absolutely. Number 25, Chicago Bears. Someone in the chat was saying death taxes Caden McDonald to the Bears. I know this happened a lot in mock drafts. In fact, maybe I could change it. Maybe I'll put Caleb Banks in that role. I think he might go a little bit higher than Caden McDonald, but I'll keep McDonald here to the Bears here at number 25. I mean, just simply put, the Bears don't have much D tackle right now. Not a single Chicago Bear defensive tackle even had a 60 PFF grade this year. Meanwhile, Caden McDonald had the best run defense grade of any D tackle in the country at 91.2, and he was the highest graded D tackle in the Power 4 overall with an 86.5 PFF grade. So him or Caleb Banks, take your pick, but I do think Chicago at number 25 overall should prioritize a defensive tackle.
It's where you're going to see some of the influence of the last 2 Super Bowl winners in Philly and Seattle, where think about guys like Jordan Davis, right, or Byron Murphy, where maybe they don't rack up all of the traditional stats, but what they allow you to do, and they prevent offensive linemen from getting to the second level on your linebackers, guys that can just plug the holes in the middle, like McDonald can, like I think Kristen Miller could be in high demand from Georgia, the nose tackle there. These are players whose value is, they're up right now, right? Peter Woods going 19 there, right, to help out that Panthers run defense. This is very, very important, right? I think this is how defenses need to be built. Bigger run-stopping defensive linemen. If you're gonna be a nickel all the time, and the Bears are in nickel all the time, Kyler Gordon's always on the field.
Yeah.
You better have that front 4 ready to go on early downs against the run. Caden McDonald is a perfect example of that. Is he ever going to have more than maybe at his peak 5 sacks in a given season? Probably not. But what he does in the run game makes his entire front 7 better. That's extremely valuable, and that would be really valuable to that Bears defense.
Jack, who's the Bears fan, by the way, is saying, you know what, as a Bears fan, I do approve of the pick, though. So I appreciate that, Jack, right there. Appreciate that.
Sometimes the obvious one works.
Sometimes the obvious one works, absolutely. Number 26 here, the Buffalo Bills, another pretty obvious one, probably. Wide receiver Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. The new head coach, and Joe Brady, offensive-minded head coach. Obviously, he probably knows how badly they need help in that receiving core right now. And I think Casey Concepcion, really good prospect, led the SEC this past year with 48 catches that went for either a first down or a touchdown. He has value as a punt returner, as well as a versatile weapon, I think, in this Buffalo Bills offense. And like I said, they need to add more in that receiving core for Josh Allen right now. You can't just rely on Josh Allen to be superhero for you in every single game, but I think Casey Concepcion would be a really, really good fit in that offense.
I think there are several positions here the Bills could attack, right? I think defensive line, even somebody like a TJ Parker could help them, who you have going here to the next pick with San Francisco. CJ Allen is somebody who I've mocked a lot to Buffalo. It's just, hey, we need somebody who can stop the run next to Terrell Bernard, right? Their linebacker room is not great. Safety, I think Dylan Thieneman right alongside Cole Bishop. I think he would make a lot of sense in that defense. And I think as far as at receiver, with Concepcion and the Bills, yeah, he would absolutely make him better. No question. I love KC. I think he really comps well. He's a little bit smaller, but I think his skills comp well to Luther Burden last year, where he's going to go either from this, somewhere between 25 and 40. KC is going to get taken, and I think he's going to be good in the league. Plus, you get a dynamic returner. The only thing for me in this Bills offense is his role somewhat redundant to Khalil Shakir. Now, the difference is KC can get vertical. Shakir not really known much as a vertical guy. So maybe it doesn't matter and you just get athletes on the field and it's fine. It's going to be, I think the Bills pick is pretty fascinating because there's probably 5 different ways it could go, and I would go, okay, they just made their team better, right? At linebacker, D-line, safety, receiver, even if they want to bulk up more on the offensive line, they can. But this Bills team, I mean, they're trying to find ways to get over the hump. And like you mentioned, you could feel it in the playoffs when we're running Brandon Cooks out there on the biggest plays of the game. Yeah, they need another weapon and one that can get vertical. KC can do that.
Yeah, definitely. Also, someone in the chat saying they should trade up for Denzel Boston. Would not hate that either.
Would love that.
That's a guy I love, Denzel Boston. Like I said, I would trade up for him too. I think that would be a great call for them too. But yeah, since he's off the board here, I think Casey Concepcion just take the next best receiver, I think, for that Bills offense right now, so that's where he goes. 27, this is a little bit of a weird one for me. I kind of struggle with this one.
I'm in on this.
But TJ Parker going to Clemson. Now, I know some people are going to say, listen, they have Nick Bosa. They literally just drafted Mykel Williams in the first round last year, too, so you would think that they're set at edge rusher, but both Nick Bosa and Mykel Williams, first of all, are coming off torn ACLs. Also, when Mykel Williams was on the field, he wasn't very good at all either. I think TJ Parker, man, who I thought had a pretty good year at Clemson, had a great career at Clemson. Honestly, 85-plus career grades in run defense and as a pass rusher. I still think Mykel Williams is kind of a boomer bust player. TJ Parker, I think, is a high floor player. So I know you took an edge rusher last year, and I know you have a superstar, Nick Bosa, but I mean, at least both those players now have proven to be a little bit injury prone. I think TJ Parker's a high floor player, and San Francisco needs high floor players on the defensive line.
The schematic case for it, too, is now you've got, instead of Robert Saleh running your defense, you're going to have Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris will get into more five-man fronts, and he likes those stand-up outside linebackers. You could see Mykel Williams reduce down a lot more. And five-man fronts, actually, with that team could work. Because think about these five, okay, across the board. Bosa, Mykel, C.J. West on the nose, Alfred Collins as another end, which is kind of his natural position, right? And then TJ Parker on the others. That is a five-man front. That makes a lot of sense to me, right? Because I would not shy away, with as bad as San Fran's pass rush was this year, I would not shy away from a pass rusher at all if there's one that they like here. I don't hate that pick at all. I think he'd be a nice fit in Raheem Morris's defense.
Definitely. Next pick, actually, another guy I considered for San Francisco is Caleb Banks, the D-tackle out of Florida, but I take him here to the Houston Texans, making that defensive line even more ferocious right now. The Texans had the highest graded group of edge rushers this past year, with Will Anderson Jr. leading the way, but they could a little bit improve at defensive tackle too. Obviously, Caleb Banks didn't really play much at all this past year, only played in 3 games due to foot surgery, but since 2023, over the last 3 years, he's a 12% pressure rate. That's 6th among all Power 4 defensive tackles, and he was dominant at the Senior Bowl too, kind of reminding a lot of people why he was projected as a first-round pick earlier. So he might even go higher than number 28 right here, Dalton, but I think on that defensive line, getting a guy like Caleb Banks to go along with a guy like Will Anderson Jr. too, I think it could be really ferocious D-line.
Just the rich get richer, huh? That's what we're doing here with Houston. So we're just going to lean in and try to win every playoff game 13-10. We're going to do it that way. I think this might be one of the picks that I most disagree with. And again, picking purely for need is tough, but when the need is so glaringly obvious over anything else on their team, the offensive line, I think Emmanuel Pregnon is absolutely in consideration here. And the fun part, too, is Houston can take a tackle or an interior guy like a Pregnon, or they could go Monroe Freeling or somebody like that because they have Titus Howard. Titus Howard has extensive experience playing both right tackle and playing on the inside at guard. So if you took, say, a Monroe Freeling and said, okay, you're a right tackle, Howard can play left guard, right? If you took Pregnon to play guard, you could tell Titus, all right, you're playing right tackle this year. And he's flipped around between the two even in season like he did this year. So that gives you the flexibility to me for Houston to say, take the best offensive lineman on the board. The other thing with the Texans is that they've got that extra draft capital from the Laramie Tunsil trade last year. I think they're a prime move-up candidate. I think there's a chance, like you had the Chargers at 22 with Ioane. If they wanted to trade up, say to 20 or 21 there, and take Ioane away from it, I think they would absolutely do. They've got the capital to do it. To me, if I'm Houston and I'm the Chargers, I'm doing every bit that I can, jockeying draft order, jockeying draft position, whatever, to improve this offensive line. Because that's all it's missing, right? You just have to improve this offensive line to be significantly better than it's been. Houston's was better than I expected it to be this year, but still not great. That would be the approach for me. Any way I can get the best offensive lineman on my board.
That's fair. So to answer the question in the chat right now, someone asked who the 5 in front of Caleb Banks. It was Derek Harmon, Grayson Halton, Aeneas Peebles, Riley Mills, and TJ Sanders were the only ones with a higher pressure rate than Caleb Banks. I do think D tackle's a need for Houston, though, right now. I know it's not as big of a need as probably the offensive line, but I wanted to get Caleb Banks somewhere in the first round of this mock draft, and a predicted mock draft right here. And I think the Texans do have a need at D tackle right now, so that's why I took him here to Houston. But yeah, there's absolutely a need along the offensive line as well. But I don't know if the offensive lineman available right now are as good of a player as Caleb Banks. So I do think the Texans might look at that and say, listen, just take best player available at a position we need. Caleb Banks would fit that role for that Houston Texans team. Number 29, the Rams are taking Monroe Freeling, the tackle out of Georgia. Again, not really a quarterback I'm comfortable taking here at number 29 with Ty Simpson off the board. Warren McClendon was pretty good at right tackle for the Rams this year, but they could look for the long-term answer at the position. Freeling had an 86 pass blocking grade this year. That was 7th among all tackles in the country. I think, again, maximize the Super Bowl window that you got right now with Matthew Stafford taking Jermon McCoy, and Monroe Freeling would probably be the way to do that.
No, absolutely. I mean, if they feel like McClendon is more of a swing guy, or they just want a younger guy they can keep long term and get on the first round rookie deal, I think it makes a lot of sense here. I mean, that right tackle spot is one. It's been occupied by Rob Havenstein for quite a while, and then he just kind of aged out of it a bit and had some injuries. But we will find out very quickly what their faith is in McClendon as a potential long term starter, or if they want to reset at that position in this draft.
Sure. 30, the Denver Broncos. I took C.J. Allen, the linebacker out of Georgia. Obviously, Denver, one of the best defenses in the NFL this year. I do think they can improve at linebacker, though, and C.J. Allen is a terrific run defender out of Georgia. 89 run defense grade this past year, 9th in the Power 4. So I do think this is one of the few needs you could see on this Denver team right now. Not really a wide receiver or a tight end that I wanted to take here for Denver either at 30. So I think C.J. Allen kind of fits the bill here for at number 30.
Alex Singleton, Justin Strnad, both free agents. So you're going to need to figure out who a starter is next to C.J. Allen. Now, Singleton's actually probably a pretty decent comp with how well he plays in run defense and that complement that he was to Greenlaw. I think Allen can play a similar role. That makes a lot of sense. Like you mentioned, other offensive skill players that maybe they could take, Concepcion, Sadiq, those are a couple of guys I think about here off the board. Defensively, I do think their biggest need is to find a starter at linebacker next to Dre Greenlaw.
Yep. Final two picks here in my mock draft, the two Super Bowl teams. At number 31, a lot of people probably want a left tackle for the New England Patriots. I went with an edge rusher, though. Akeem Mesidor, the edge rusher out of Miami. I mean, the Patriots didn't have a single edge rusher that even had a top 40 PFF grade this year. Mesidor, obviously kind of the Robin to Ruben Bain's Batman on that Miami defensive line, but pretty good Robin, man. He was incredible this past year. He and Ruben Bain actually were the only Power 4 edge rushers that had top 10 grades as a pass rusher and as a run defender in the country. So Akeem Mesidor had a terrific year this past year. I know age is a little bit of a question mark for him, but for a Patriots team that wants instant contributors on that defensive line, I think Akeem Mesidor would fit that bill.
I think that's awesome. I know they spent money on Harold Landry last year too, but I think the Patriots, one of their prime targets in free agency should be Trey Hendrickson, the edge rusher from Cincinnati. I do think this is the one piece to me of their defense that's missing a little. I think their secondary is outstanding. Their interior pass rush is outstanding. Their edge rushers as a unit were 29th in pass rush grade this year, and I believe they were dead last in pass rush win rate. Good run defenders. Kayvon Chason, a good rotational piece, but I believe he's a free agent also. This is a unit they're going to have to attack, and Mike Vrabel came out today and said, hey, Will Campbell's our left tackle, so you can stop this nonsense, and I do believe, at least for one more year, that's the right decision. He's a rookie. He came out and said he wasn't 100% recovered with his injury through the playoffs, not an excuse, but he's a rookie. And he's a rookie who, throughout the entirety of the season, was probably a league average tackle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, calm down a little bit before we just start moving him into center and doing all that stuff. So I agree here. I think edge rusher is going to be a big priority, and New England's got 11 draft picks to work with. If this is somebody they really like, don't be shocked at them trading up either.
Yeah, I do think it's overblown how bad Will Campbell was this year. I think, the playoffs are not very kind to him, but also he's playing some terrific defenses in that stretch for a rookie. And also the regular season for him was phenomenal. So I thought it was a really good year for Will Campbell overall. And I think he is probably, at least right now, at least a solid tackle to have for New England. I'm with you. At least give him next year at left tackle and then see what you got to do from there. Maybe he's going to play left guard after that. Final pick here, Seattle Seahawks. There are a couple corners I was considering here, Colton Hood and Brandon Cisse. I took Colton Hood, though, here, the corner out of Tennessee. He had over an 80 coverage grade this year, which is 6th in the SEC. Obviously, Devin Witherspoon is a superstar. We saw that in the Super Bowl. He was easily the highest graded corner in the NFL this year. But there is kind of a question mark for Seattle at the other cornerback spot opposite of him. So I think Colton Hood could be a guy they look at. Him or Brandon Cisse, the corner of South Carolina, could be a couple guys they look at with that number 32 overall pick.
Yeah, some fun options here. And I think for Seattle in the secondary, there's going to be some focus. Obviously, they were great. They were great this year, but they got some big free agents. Reek Woolen and Josh Jobe at corner, both free agents. Free safety, Kobe Bryant. He's a free agent. I think their number one free agent priority to me, keep Kenneth Walker. You got to find a way to sign Kenneth Walker, keep that going in the backfield. Then I think the second guy out of all of them, to me, is Kobe Bryant. And that could really decide if he stays or goes a lot of what Seattle could do with this 32nd pick. Because there's been a lot of people mocking corner to them. If Kobe Bryant leaves, okay, don't be shocked if this pick is a safety, if it's a Dylan Thieneman or an Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, right? Both who are getting some late first-round buzz lately. I think Mike McDonald, especially Thieneman, with as much as he can move around and his speed and all the different roles that he can play, I think he'd be a seamless fit back there with Julian Love back there at free safety. Eamon Wari, obviously, as that hybrid nickel, third linebacker, whatever you want to call him. If Kobe Bryant leaves in free agency, I think we start mocking safety to this team a little more. But any which way, you've got three pretty key players from this season in the secondary that are free agents. Doesn't sound like they're going to keep all three of them. Let's see which ones they prioritize.
Yep. So that wraps up my second mock draft, actually, that I've done for PFF. I'm sure Dalton will have one coming up very, very soon. Maybe we can react to that one as well. I could kill all of your picks next time. How about that?
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
We'll turn your mic off for that one. How about
there
that?
you go. I might even do one of those ones where I just trade every pick and we
Love
just,
it. Yeah,
we just get all
That'd
over
be a
the
fun
place.
one.
We'll see. No, it's going to take me a lot of time. We'll see.
That would.
We'll see. Don't cut the mics, guys. Just at least not mine. Just him, whatever. It's fine.
But that wraps up our my second mock draft that we have for the 2026 NFL Draft. A lot more draft content coming on this channel. In fact, on Friday, we will be having our top 10 wide receivers in the 2026 NFL Draft. Continue our series after the top 10 quarterbacks and top 10 running backs that we did. So tune in on Friday for our top 10 wide receivers in the 2026 NFL Draft with a scouting report for all of those receivers that we're going to talk about on Friday. But appreciate you guys in the chat for hanging out with us today. Appreciate our producers back there and Eli and Tyler for fixing my mic and having me be on the show today. I'm very grateful for that too. Appreciate you, Dalton, for sitting next to me today.
I might get promoted to host. We'll see.
There you go.
For this
Maybe.
Might happen. Could happen.
I'll let you do the ad reads from now on. How about that?
I don't know about all that.
But for Dalton Wasserman, I'm Max Chadwick. We'll see you guys on Friday with our top 10 wideouts in the 2026 NFL Draft.